In the library. The library was located in a different wing of the building on the second floor. It was a large, well-lit hall with long fans suspended from the ceiling and pristine white walls. It comprised of an entire floor with a reading section in the center where several tables and chairs were placed, and there were wooden book racks, catering to various subjects on the sides. At the far end was a section devoted to fiction and hobbies. The librarian sat near the entrance behind a desk which had a few ledgers and a computer. Beside her were 6 cubicles where computers with internet access were placed for quick references. Anna was truly awestruck at the size of the space and the volume of literary material available. She thanked God and her father for having made the switch in schools possible as she wheeled herself around while trying to familiarize and orient herself. She reached the section devoted to English literature, and a book of poems caught her eye. As she reached out for it, she realized that it was placed a little above where her hand could reach. She bit her lip in consternation. She could not call out for help as it was a silent zone. She looked around for help, but the closest child was David, the bully. He had already sniggered at her for her inability to stand in the English class, so Anna did not feel comfortable asking him for help. She turned her wheelchair about looking for Lena, but she could not spot her. Tough luck. David noticed her wheeling about and smiled wickedly. He sauntered up to her with his hands in his pockets, leaned forward and asked her what the problem was in a whisper. She hesitated. Should she confide in him? The good-hearted girl that she was, she saw no harm in pointing out the book to him as she whispered back, "I would like to see that book. Could you help me, please?" David was beside himself with excitement. He reached out for the book, picked it out, showed it to Anna, and placed it on a higher shelf. He looked down at her and winked before pointedly walking away from her. Poor Anna lowered her face with grief. She felt humiliated and ashamed. David, on the other hand, strode across the hall and watched her out through the corner of his eye. Her sad and tearful face made him feel like he had achieved what he set out to do, but deep down inside, there was a funny emotion that was strange to him, and he could not understand it. He just shrugged it off and continued to flip through a book on science rather disinterestedly. He was more interested in knowing what Anna's next course of action would be. Meanwhile, Anna pulled herself together, wiped away her tears, and made a mental note of the book and rack before she wheeled herself to the librarian's desk to make a request for help. Miss Prema, the librarian, was a thin, pale, and wiry woman who appeared very pleasant in her floral printed dress, but she had a rather shrill voice. She looked up upon hearing the soft hum of Anna's wheelchair and smiled at the new girl reassuringly. She was only too happy to oblige Anna and accompanied her to where the book was. Not only did she get the book down for the new girl, but she also pulled out a few more similar books for her to choose from. She did make a mental note, though, that the book had been moved from its designated place, but did not dwell on it. Maybe it had happened as an error where the place had been cleaned up. She must ask the cleaning staff not to fiddle with the book's placements. David had kept an eye on what transpired, as he was not really inclined towards academic pursuits, and he usually only looked over the section on fiction. Today, however, this part of the library was more interesting. He had not anticipated this turn of events. He was truly bracing to hear Miss Prema's shrill voice in his ear, but surprisingly, that had not happened. He grudgingly admired the spunk that Anna had exhibited by going up to the librarian and asking for help instead of complaining about him. For a moment, there he had felt that was what she was going to do, complain about him, but she did not. Admiration was an unfamiliar emotion. Shouldn't he be feeling disappointed at not having been the root cause of a furor? Anna, on the other hand, decided to completely ignore David and never ask him for help if the situation could be avoided. She found a desk, placed her books, and slowly lost herself in the world of rhyme and verse that she loved. This is how Lena found her when she returned from having picked out an atlas to help her with geography. She found the subject as challenging as math. She plonked herself next to Anna and started poring over her book. The girls were oblivious of what went on around them as they were both completely engrossed in their books. But this was not the case with David. He was perplexed by Anna's behavior, and although he was reluctant to admit it, he did feel a twinge of regret at his own mean act. He secretly watched the two friends as he tried to figure out why he felt so strange. He was intrigued with this unfamiliar battery of emotions. Soon an hour went by, and the children who wanted to get books issued gathered around Miss Prema's desk. Anna joined the queue and fondly clutched her book of poems. She received a warm smile from Miss Prema as she noted down the details of her book, and she knew that here was someone she could depend upon for help. She smiled back as she picked up her favorite companion for the next 2 weeks. The two girls chatted away merrily while they headed to the school cafeteria as it was time for the recess to grab a snack and take a break. Today, they had a banana and a grilled vegetable sandwich each on the menu. The girls picked up their snacks and headed to a corner of one of the long tables. Between mouthfuls of food, the girls began to exchange information about themselves. Anna learned that Lena had an older brother too who was studying in a village in Kerala, a state in southern India. His name was Prakash, and he was 4 years older than Lena. He helped their grandparents back at home with their agriculture business along with studying. Lena's parents had moved to the nearby town of Mahabaleshwar, where her father had started with a small-time business of running a grocery store. He did well over time and gradually expanded his business with the starting of a hotel as well. He prospered, and over the period of 10 years, his dream to make it big materialized. He now ran a resort in the little tourist town. Anna told Lena about her little 3-year-old brother Rob. He was a delightful lad who loves asking questions which could get annoying at times. Her father worked at a bank and her mother was a housewife who baked the most amazing cakes. Lena had just broached the subject of the wheelchair and why it was needed when the bell sounded and they had to return to class. The rest of the classes went by like a breeze, and it was soon time to call it a day. Anna got her things together and waited for her car to arrive while Lena got ready to get back to the hostel. She had to check on Rahul before she went. They parted company cheerfully and headed out. Anna towards the car park and Lena towards the junior wing. Anna spotted the bright blue car and got it with help from Giri, the driver. Once the wheelchair was stowed away and the boot tightly shut, they headed back home. Anna rested her head on the back of the seat, stared out of the window and sighed. Lena's question that had been left unanswered came back to mind and brought back some very difficult and painful memories.